to act so high and mighty over just $2,000.
When I heard those words from my son whom I was living with, I couldn't believe my ears. Actually, a year ago, my son and his wife asked me to live with them. I agreed with their request and relocating to their home.
If you intend to live in this luxury high-rise apartment, you need to cover the $2,000 fee.
When he suddenly told me that, I was both shocked and bewildered. By then, I had already sold my previous residence. All of my belongings were already moved to the new place.
Considering we're letting you live with us, that expense is only natural.
She responded with an arrogant tone. It was completely different from the warm atmosphere when they asked me to move in before.
If you have any complaints, you're free to leave.
Thank you, take care. Smiling, I packed my things and stepped back from living with them. My son and his wife, who didn't expect me to actually leave, were soon confronted with an unforeseen situation. My name is Ellie. I work as a public servant and am married. Once, my husband, also a public servant, and I lived separately due to certain circumstances. We have a son named Larry. By the time he started high school,
I don't see myself settling into the routine of a public servant. I want to succeed as an entrepreneur and make a name for myself.
He began to speak with such passion. Larry's grandfather, who lived nearby, was inherently bold and always looked at things from a fresh perspective. Perhaps Larry's ambition was influenced by him. The grandfather, on the other hand, was not faithful in his relationships. He was involved in various businesses, so his income was never stable. My mother often seemed stressed and troubled because of this. But for young Larry, this grandfather might have appeared charismatic and filled with an adventurous spirit. On the other hand, my husband had always aspired to have a stable profession like a public servant because he witnessed the struggles of his mother when he was a child. I also, preferring a steady life over adventures, chose a career as a public servant. As a result, our values were very aligned. We were able to build a calm and comforting household. Our biggest joy during weekends was finding a new ramen shop. Not just ramen shops, also hidden gems beloved by the locals, savoring their flavors. This was our special time. This simple hobby might have seemed boring and repetitive to our son, Larry. Right after graduating from college, he started a startup company with friends who shared the same goal. You could see his energy and passion from the way he worked tirelessly day and night. Sometimes, when his business funds were running low, he would come to us for help, but my husband responded with a stern look.
This is the way you've chosen. If so, you should overcome it by yourself without relying on us.
Indeed, while Larry lived with us, we never asked him for any living expenses. That was our way of supporting him. After a few years of trials and tribulations, Larry's startup faced a difficult problem. However, through the experience and the network he built, he was able to join a major corporation. The day he wore his newly purchased luxury suit and excitedly showed us his employee badge, it still shines brightly in my memory. As he approached 30, Larry came to us, saying he wanted to introduce someone special. It was Quinn, and she was working as a model in the city. Although slender, she had a well-built physique, dressed elegantly, and had a striking beauty. Her high pride and self-esteem were evident from her gestures and behavior. She was indeed a perfect match for the flamboyant Larry. When she entered our apartment, which is over 30 years old, she looked a bit surprised.
This place has quite simple interior. It's like something from a TV drama. I wonder if there's an antique clock.
Hearing this, Larry beamed with a big smile.
It's a good house, right? A house with a lot of memories. But don't worry, the place we'll be living in is entirely different.
Where will you live in? Curious, I asked, and he pointed out the window.
It's a tower apartment. Look, it's the upper part of that newly built building.
His face was filled with anticipation and pride for his new life ahead. With a concerned look, he furrowed his brows and sincerely said, "Are you sure you can manage the monthly mortgage payments for that tower condo? If you miss or delay payments, it'll affect your credit score, and the process can be quite a hassle. Please be careful," Larry confidently replied.
Don't worry, given my current job and position, I can make the payments. After all, I'm in a significant role at a top tire company now.
He said this with pride. Meanwhile, Quinn watched their exchange with amusement and commented with a hint of mockery.
This is interesting. It's like a kite producing an eagle.
It seemed hinting at our simple lifestyle. The couple then had a grand wedding surrounded by guests at a famous upscale restaurant in downtown. A few days after the wedding, Larry came to our home. As he opened the gift envelope from us, his expression shifted to surprise.
Why is the gift only $9,000?
Quinn laughed, saying it was a small amount.
I thought parents nowadays give around $18,000 at weddings.
He indirectly expressed his dissatisfaction when we explained that $9,000 was a standard amount for us. Larry's face showed clear displeasure.
You guys are really tight-fisted. I've asked so many times for investments for my future, but you never once agreed. I wish you'd play your role as parents, especially at such crucial times.
With a deep sigh, he placed the gift envelope on the table with a hint of force. This action clearly indicated his hope for an additional $9,000. However, we had supported Larry throughout the years, knowing well the hardships he'd faced since his student days. Our intentional lack of investment was out of love, to teach him the harsh realities of life and the importance of independence. The fact that he didn't understand this was truly heartbreaking for us. My husband and I locked eyes in silence, seeking each other's opinions on how to handle the situation. I slowly shook my head, signaling my thoughts to my husband. He nodded in understanding, then slowly turned to face our son, Larry.
Larry, listen carefully. You remember, don't you? We gave $15,000 during the engagement ceremony. We believe we've done our best as parents over these many years. You're already 30, an adult. It's time for you to stand on your own. Honestly, it's difficult for us to support you any further.
Saying this calmly and gently, he then handed the envelope back to Larry with a sigh. However, Larry's face turned bright red with anger and he exploded.
So, you're saying I have to face societal shame? You really don't understand how I feel.
He yelled loudly, slammed the table hard, and stormed out of the room in fury. My husband and I were left in shock and confusion. Even after 2 years, we hadn't heard anything from our eldest son and his wife, Quinn. I slowly began to feel that our relationship with them might have come to an end. Every day, I stared at the distant high-rise apartments from the window, hoping for their happiness. During this period, my husband suddenly proposed something unbelievable. That night, we discussed deeply for hours. As a result, my husband decided to move to a new place, and I resolved to continue living in our current home alone. Living alone was surprisingly relaxing. I dine quietly at my favorite restaurant after work, and sometimes enjoy evening shows. Initially, I was quite excited about this new rhythm of life and fully enjoyed each day. However, as time passed, the silence in the house and the consecutive nights without talking to anyone made me feel increasingly lonely. That's when I started to seriously consider getting a pet. One day, unexpectedly, I received a call from Larry.
Mom, I heard you're living alone.
Larry's voice sounded much more mature and calm than before. I was a bit surprised by this change, but asked, "Yes, due to various circumstances. Can't discuss in detail right now. How about you, Larry? Are you doing well?"
I'm fine, but I'm worried about you being alone. So if you're okay with it, why not come over here?
He suggested with genuine concern. The 2-bedroom apartment I live in was just the right size for my husband and me when we first moved in. However, since I became alone, the apartment started feeling a bit spacious. Every day, the only sounds filling that space were those of my own life. I felt relieved hearing his mature voice. Actually, living alone can be quite lonely. But what does Quinn think about me coming over? As I asked with a hint of anxiety, I realized the call was on speaker mode.
Hello, Mother. We've actually been worried about you living alone. It gets dark early, and we're concerned about you. We believe living together will strengthen our family bond. Please come and live with us. We really want you here.
Her voice changed, sounding genuinely caring compared to before. However, memories of past events lingered in my mind, making me apprehensive, considering how much Larry and Quinn had grown over the past 2 years. I began to feel hopeful about sharing a life with them. I told them I needed more time to think and ended the call that night. But deep down, I felt moved by their proposal and was swayed bit by bit. Every evening, Larry and Quinn called me, showing their concern. Their voices conveyed a passionate wish for us to live together. I felt the urge to reciprocate their feelings. I considered selling my two-bedroom apartment. This apartment was a gift from my late father, thinking of my future. I hadn't imagined then how different my life would turn out. Larry and Quinn welcomed me into their new home with open arms.
Mother, this is your new room.
With that, she led me to my new room. The 8th-floor apartment in this tower building had a marvelous view from the window, and the interior was tastefully designed to fit current trends. I felt a bit out of place in this upscale space, but I reminded myself that I came here through my eldest son's introduction and tried to dismiss my unease. However, the room designated for me was about a 65 sq.ft space. In fact, it resembled a walk-in closet, and to my surprise, it didn't have any windows. The room was filled with Larry and Quinn's clothes, shoes, and even random accessories. Understanding the situation, she kept her smile and said,
It was harder than we thought to make enough space for a mattress in this room.
Taken aback by the situation and Quinn's attitude, I faintly responded, "Oh, okay." She brought a plastic partition and suggested,
Using this, we can create some privacy spaces. Please store your belongings in this partitioned area.
She kindly instructed. After that, Larry efficiently placed my heavy suitcase in the allotted space. However, in this tiny space, not only finding a place for my luggage, but even securing a sleeping spot seemed challenging. Furthermore, without any heating or cooling system in the room, I deeply worried about how I'd endure the hot summer days. While my astonishment was still fresh, Larry and Quinn guided me to the kitchen. Although the kitchen was equipped with the latest appliances, everything wasn't necessarily organized.
From now on, we want you to prepare our meals. However, rather than traditional dishes, we'd prefer something more modern. And we'd like you to utilize these seasonings' unique features.
Saying this, she pointed to various seasoning bottles of different designs arranged on the stainless kitchen counter. Upon closer inspection of the bottles, some were unopened. It seemed that while they liked purchasing new items, they weren't sure about how to use them, leaving some untouched. A frequently used kitchen often has a lived-in feel, but this kitchen seemed more like a display.
We'd like you to clean the bathroom once a week. And the toilet should be cleaned immediately after use. But at the very least, every day.
She said brightly. However, it was evident from the visible stains and watermarks that the bathroom hadn't been cleaned in a while, and the toilet hadn't been maintained for a long time. I began to wonder what she did every day and whether she truly lived in the house. Glancing around the living space, I noticed dust accumulating in corners and under furniture, making my heart sink.
Living in this upscale tower apartment is attractive, right? But it requires a monthly payment of around $2,000.
He remarked, seemingly enjoying my surprise. As I stood there, stunned by his words, Quinn added,
If you're living in the same house and leading the same lifestyle as us, isn't that expense only natural?
As she spoke, there was a mix of expectation and a slightly challenging glint in her eyes. Their demeanor remained as arrogant as it was when they first visited our house. Internally, I regretted my past decisions. I had already sold my house and disposed of my furniture and appliances. Certainly, I have a stable job as a civil servant, but finding a new place to live at my age was challenging. Perhaps understanding my situation, Larry handed me a note with his bank account details, wearing a cheeky grin.
From now on, I'd like you to transfer the monthly rent to this account. Oh, and dinner should ideally be around 7 p.m. Please keep that in mind.
Saying this, he sat on the living room sofa, picked up the remote, and turned on the TV.
I hope you understand. Actually, I have an appointment at a spa today. And it's about time.
I was taken aback, but somewhere I had a faint hope that their attitude would change as we started living together. He's the son I've raised and cared for all these years. I couldn't criticize him or his behavior that easily. Although I felt physically drained, I searched for complex seasoning recipes on my smartphone and managed to prepare a delicious meal using them.
Wow, as expected, you're really good at this.
Sharing a meal as a family, it feels warm, something I haven't felt in a long time.
Hearing him express his feelings, I felt renewed hope that through my cooking, I might slowly connect with their hearts. However, a son might always feel that it's natural for his mother to do things for him. Even if I prepared dinner with all my heart, there were many nights when they came home late, and the food I took time and effort to prepare remained untouched. I often asked them to notify me if they'd be late, but they completely ignored this request, lacking even basic consideration for me, their housemate. Furthermore, they fully relied on me for housework and hadn't given me any living expenses. As a result, most of my salary went towards the mortgage, their food, and other living expenses.
I've mentioned several times that I work as a model.
However, most of her outings were for shopping. Given her erratic lifestyle and diet, she didn't look like a professional model at all. Especially on days when I knew I'd be late from work, I'd ask Quinn to help with household chores in advance.
Why should I handle such mundane tasks? You know I'm a professional model. Reflect on why I agreed to live together. Please come home early, or bring me a gift or something. Remember, I'm a professional model.
While I could sense the pride she had in her profession from her words, she showed no effort to maintain her physique. This contradiction frustrated me. Then make dinner for yourself. I'll eat out. Do whatever you want. Saying this, I hung up, a bit angrily. Within minutes, I received a call back from Quinn.
Why are you so condescending? We're having a tough time too. Isn't this situation because your son, Larry, quit his job? What do you think about that? Don't you feel responsible for it?
From her angry words, I learned for the first time that Larry had quit his job. I was in shock. After working late into the night, when I returned home, I found Quinn carelessly sleeping on the living room sofa, hugging a bottle of alcohol. Her face was flushed from the booze, and despite appearing peaceful, there was evident fatigue. Coming home shortly after, Larry looked at me, his face drunk.
I'm hungry. Mom, can you make something quick, like sandwich?
And he said slowly. At that moment, it felt as though something inside me snapped. Make it yourself, I retorted sharply, then headed to my room and closed the door. I could hear footsteps approaching, and then Larry raised his voice.
Why do you complain like that? I let you live in this house. Aren't you grateful at all?
He protested loudly. I felt it wasn't the good time to discuss his job situation, but I also couldn't ignore it and decided I should talk about it at an appropriate time. Moreover, I was busy with year-end accounts and was swamped every day. In the midst of all this, a piece of good news came, lifting my spirits. Encouraged by this news, I firmly decided to set aside time to have a thorough discussion the next weekend. Please don't make any plans for Saturday night. We have an important discussion. If you're not home, I might reconsider my financial support. I informed them of this. On the Saturday night, marking almost a year since we started living together, both were home as promised. However, before I could start the conversation, Quinn, with a smug look on her face, showed me a document. It was a divorce paper with only my husband's name on it. I was lost for words at that moment. Stunned, I was silent for a while. This isn't the divorce paper from my belongings.
How dare you go through my things? I won't forgive this.
I shouted, my face turning bright red.
Mother, did you already know that your husband wanted a divorce? It's so sad that after all these years, it ends this way for you. However, I kind of understand why a subdued woman like you might be left behind,
She said with heavy sarcasm. Following that, Larry, with a scornful tone, responded.
You've been saying there was some reason you couldn't speak up, so it was just about being asked for a divorce. Why do you hide such truths and pretend?
He continued to blame me. Then, Quinn took the divorce papers she had with her and waved them multiple times in front of my eyes.
but even after being proposed with divorce like this, to continue staying here. It's simply shameful. If it were me, I would have left immediately.
She laughed triumphantly. From her attitude, it was evident how much she enjoyed making me uncomfortable. Especially remembering a recent phone call, it was clear this was her retaliation. She stopped in front of me, full of confidence, looked down on me and said,
Remember, you're living here thanks to us. So maybe you should be a bit more grateful for our presence and contributions. We bring joy and brightness to your lonely days, don't we?
She said, smiling, and gently stroked my cheek with the divorce papers. Larry, who was next to her, watched me with a satisfied look, as if he had done his part. Inside, my anger and disappointment grew towards my own son, who just stood by in such a situation. I took a deep breath. Let's think about that later. Right now, there's a very important matter I'd like to discuss, I said, gently, keeping my head down. At those words, Quinn seemed slightly taken aback. However, Larry, not sensing the mood, replied,
Yeah, what's it about?
with a hint of irritation in his voice. I looked straight into his eyes. Actually, I've been wondering how long you've been out of work, I asked cautiously. He looked away, remaining silent. I've heard rumors that you recently quit that company. Is it true? Are you looking for new job offers or vacancies? Larry reacted to the question, becoming sullen like a little child.
Stop nagging. Why do you care about that? What does it matter?
He raised his voice loudly. However, I remained unshaken by his reaction and chose my words carefully. It's crucial for our household finances. Considering I'm paying the large mortgage on this house every month and covering almost all the living expenses, I'm concerned about your job situation, I explained.
Making a big fuss over just $2,000.
He retorted with an ironic grin.
If you dislike us so much, why don't you just leave? But I bet there's nowhere you can go, is there?
Her words were laced with provocation. Her expression at that moment was far from her usual glamorous model demeanor, rather distasteful. Seeing this, I found the situation rather humorous and inadvertently showed a smile. Larry and Quinn looked at me in surprise. I responded to their gaze with a calm smile. Well, okay, I'm leaving. You do enjoy. Take care. I began quickly gathering my essentials in the room. My actions were swift and methodical.
Wait, are you really leaving? Do you have somewhere to go?
His voice was slightly shaky, but while I continued to pack, I calmly responded, yes, in fact, your father has already prepared a new life for me, and I'm heading to his place now. It's so good you both suggested this at the right time. I was worried about how I'd react. I replied confidently.
Wait, Dad did. So, you're not divorcing after all?
A look of disbelief was evident on his face. Yes, your father left work early to pursue his dream of opening a ramen restaurant. Quinn was very interested and listened to my story with wide eyes.
Wait, a ramen shop?
There was genuine surprise and interest in her voice. Actually, there are initiatives in local cities these days that offer ramen making training and workshops to attract the younger generation. They even provide financial support for those starting new businesses. While it's uncertain whether the venture will succeed or fail, your father considered the option of divorce to ensure I wouldn't bear the financial burden if things didn't go well. He had even prepared the divorce papers and left them at home.
So, you mean those divorce papers are…
Yes, they weren't what you thought. It was a proactive and thoughtful plan by your father. Saying that, I turned to face Larry. Actually, you never really understood your father, did you? His eyes welled up with tears, and he hung his head. It's hard to find someone as sincere and considerate as him. It makes me a bit sad to see how different you are from him. I then organized the few belongings I had and started heading towards the entrance. Larry just sat down, looking stunned. Noticing his state, Quinn ran to him with a concerned look.
Please forgive me, Mother. What I said earlier was a momentary lapse in judgment. I didn't mean it. Let's live peacefully as a family again.
Responding to Quinn's slightly tense smile, peacefully? When have we ever lived peacefully as a family? As far as I remember, all you did was give me orders and demands. So if you and Larry wish to live a happy life, I really hope you do. With that, I handed her a recent newspaper clipping. The article detailed how the ramen shop my husband started was packed every day, drawing customers not just from the local area, but from far. Looking at the article proudly, he smiled and said, "It seems like all the hard work and research has finally paid off." He gently explained to Quinn, showing her the ramen research notebook he had compiled over the years. She intensely looked at the article, and after verifying that my husband had received certain acclaim in the magazine, she looked up in sheer surprise.
I didn't expect this to happen.
She said in astonishment. After a brief pause, she shifted her gaze to Larry.
Why did this happen? I shouldn't have gotten involved with someone like you.
Seeing Quinn, who raised her voice in criticism, I brought out a screenshot of a dubious commercial I had seen on TV and held it in front of her. In that commercial, Quinn was endorsing a product, claiming,
Use this item and the quality. of your hair will change astonishingly fast.
As she saw the captured image, her face turned red. She tried to cover the image with her hand, but I pulled it away quickly. You and him do have quite similar personalities and viewpoints, but I'm sure the two of you will figure things out, I said, and then gracefully exited the luxurious apartment building's entrance. Later, I heard they were struggling to repay the hefty mortgage on that luxurious apartment. Eventually, unable to bear the pressure of repayments, they had to give up their lavish residence. Moreover, both ended up in severe debt and in a dire financial situation. They chose to file for bankruptcy. There were rumors of seeing them in a glamorous area of the downtown, but no one knew exactly what they were up to or the detailed background and circumstances. I once had a career as a public servant in the city. However, one day, I decided to take an early retirement. Later, my husband and I opened a small ramen shop in a tranquil countryside town, and now we manage that shop. There's no theory of retirement in this ramen shop. As long as we are healthy, we intend to continue operating. Above all, serving our handmade ramen to customers and seeing their smiles is our greatest joy. It gives us a fulfilling feeling, as if it's adding years to our lives.
There's no need in making excuses. You've been let go. Send in your resignation by today's end. I almost prevented a truck from hitting a toddler while I was traveling to a crucial business appointment. I rushed to the meeting 20 minutes late and gave the child's mother the uninjured infant. I was screamed at by my supervisor, who had accompanied me. Are you aware of the significance of the meeting today? It is unacceptable to be 20 minutes late. It's a good idea to come 20 minutes early. I was aware that my tardiness was my fault, but I hoped he would see the point rather than simply lose his temper. Please listen to me, even though I sincerely apologize. A toddler was on the verge of being struck by a truck. What the heck? Which is more important, a corporate deal or a random kid? Someone who can't prioritize doesn't belong here. You are worthless. I felt disgusted and shocked. Deals were more important to him than people. I get it. I don't require this type of companionship. As instructed by my supervisor, I made the decision to resign. I had no idea that my choice would ultimately bring him to ruin. Alex Simmers is my name. I work for a mattress manufacturer. I'm in charge of selling beds at a major company that has a wide range of brands, including beds, sofas, pillows, and cushions. After moving to the bed provided by our company, my parents' back discomfort subsided. The quality of living is enhanced by good bedding. Having learned this from my parents, I joined this company because I wanted to help as many people as I could have better sleep and live better lives. In addition to overseeing a sizable store with offices, I often go to other establishments and hold business meetings as required. It's intriguing to consult with folks who have sleep problems because of the range of concerns they face. It's really satisfying when clients return to praise me for improving their quality of sleep. However, because large furniture manufacturers are producing reasonably priced, high-quality beds, I've been doubting my employment lately. There's a disagreement in the organization concerning future sales methods. One party says we should continue offering high-quality mattresses, while the other pushes for selling more, even if it means lowering quality. I, of course, want to continue delivering top-quality products. There are many inexpensive beds available. In my opinion, the purpose of our beds is to improve the comfort of the fundamental human activity of sleeping. Because of this impasse, the company's policy hasn't altered yet, but I can sense the profit-seeking side of things intensifying. I sometimes feel that I would be better off working for another furniture manufacturer. In the middle of all, the recently transferred Tompkins emerged as a new cause of stress. He belongs to the reform group. He irrationally insists that we sell 3 times as many beds, regardless of how inexpensive they are, despite the fact that the company's official policy hasn't changed. Sales quotas should be based on current situations. To increase profits without any basis or strategy, meeting a 3-fold increase is impossible for us. His frequent disrespectful remarks like just force them to buy, show his lack of regard for customers. He only gives orders and does nothing to increase sales. He doesn't even visit the store. His constant focus on raising profits is another reason for my dissatisfaction. I often wondered why Tompkins, who lacks management skills, holds a managerial position. A colleague chuckled and said, "It's all about seniority here. Long service alone can get you a managerial role." Whenever we, the sales team, desperately secure contracts and increase profits, he arrogantly claims, it's all thanks to my guidance, and sends reports to headquarters overstating his non-existent achievements. Conversely, when customers complain about being forced into purchases, he never faces the issue himself. Instead, he makes one of us deal with it, reporting that the employee lacked cooperation and inconvenienced the customer, shifting all the blame onto subordinates. Working in such a company, I started to lose sight of what I was gaining. Day by day, I just wanted to spread the word about the quality of our beds, not push products indistinguishable from others onto unwilling customers. It seemed like I was working solely for Tompkins. Amidst this, I learned from a hotel, one of my sales destinations, about their plans to build a large resort. If they could use our beds, it would be a massive deal. When I proposed the idea, they even requested custom-made beds. There are still people who need our products. Elated, I was determined to make this deal a success. When I reported this to the company, Tompkins quickly got wind of it and encouraged me with, "You better make it a success." I didn't mind the support and earnestly replied, "I'll do my best." But then he said something unbelievable. "If this succeeds, my promotion is guaranteed." My enthusiasm deflated instantly. To him, getting our beds to more people was secondary. I was just another pawn for Tompkins. No matter how hard I worked for the customers or the company, it was Tompkins who got the credit, even though he only thought of himself. What am I working so hard for? These gloomy thoughts began to consume me. The deal with the resort hotel became more concrete, and I learned that the estimate reached a staggering $100 million. Given the large number of rooms and the desire to deliver high-quality, comfortable beds, this amount seemed trivial to the client. I had ambitions too. If this deal went well, maybe other employees would reevaluate the quality of our products. We could make cheap beds of decent quality, but our brand's beds are unique. If they understood this, maybe they would reconsider. For me personally, this was a major undertaking, a gamble on the company's future. On the day of the negotiation, I got off the train at a large station near the client's location and walked down a busy street lined with office buildings and shopping malls. While waiting at a red light at the crosswalk, I noticed a little boy standing next to me, wearing a backpack. It was just past 2:00 p.m., so he was probably on his way home from school. Off this main road, there are residential areas, elementary schools, and middle schools. As a kid, I remember dreaming of becoming a pilot or a baseball player. Lost in thought, I saw the boy start to cross the road. The light had turned green. I can't afford to zone out now. I have an important business meeting, I thought to myself and stepped onto the crosswalk. Suddenly, a truck turning right from the far end of the street, without slowing down, was heading straight for the crosswalk. The little boy was still walking across. He froze the moment he saw the truck, which didn't seem to notice him and showed no signs of stopping. Thinking he was about to be hit, I ran, grabbed his backpack, and pulled him backward. I embraced his small body and rolled onto the ground, landing on my back. When I got up, the truck had passed by as if nothing had happened. Ouch. Are you okay, kid? I checked on the boy. He seemed stunned at first, but then realized what had happened and started crying loudly. Ah, there. It was scary, wasn't it? I comforted him, stroking his head, and moved to a safe place. He didn't seem injured, but he wasn't in a state to go home alone. I wiped his tears with a handkerchief and handed it to him. Can you contact someone from home? He was still sobbing, but managed to pull out what seemed like a child's smartphone from his pocket. He handed it to me without a word, seemingly trusting me. "I'll just borrow this for a sec," I said. I called a number saved as Mom on the phone. A woman's voice answered, "Hello." "Hi. Sorry, I'm calling on his behalf." "My name is Alex Simmers," I said. Though there was a moment of confusion. Understandably so, hearing a stranger's voice instead of her son's. I explained the situation as calmly as possible to avoid alarming her. "So Ray can't talk right now. I'm calling in his place. Mom, can you come pick him up?" After giving her our location, she said she would be right there. "Your mom's coming soon. Let's wait here." Okay, the boy nodded a bit. I handed back the phone and then remembered something, my phone. I hoped I hadn't missed anything. I took out my smartphone only to find a slew of missed calls from Tompkins. Reluctantly, I called him back. He answered after just one ring. "Alex, where are you? Making our client wait? What are you thinking?" Startled by his loud voice, I accidentally dropped my phone. It switched to speaker mode, making his yelling even louder. "Where are you now? Do you have any idea how important today's meeting is? You've got 5 minutes to get here, or you're fired. No matter what the reason, we don't need incompetents who can't keep time." The call abruptly ended. Startled by the sudden outburst, passers-by gave me curious looks. I quickly put away my smartphone. Fired? It seemed the boy had heard everything. Whether he understood the meaning of fired or not, I didn't want to look bad in front of him. I had to seem like a reliable adult, or the kid would surely feel anxious. I couldn't really hear. "The call got disconnected," I said, putting away my phone. I asked, using the name his mother had mentioned, "Your name's Ray, right?" "Yes. And you are?" "I'm Alex Simmers." "Alex? I have a friend named Alex, too." "Really?" Relieved to see Ray perk up, I smiled. Just then, a woman calling his name came running. Ray reacted with a "Mom" as he saw her. "Ray, I'm so glad you're safe." His mother, tears in her eyes, embraced him. Ray used the handkerchief I gave him earlier to wipe her tears. "Thank you so much. I don't know how to express my gratitude," she said. Ray's mother seemed to be around my age, a very beautiful woman. Ray would probably grow up to be handsome too. No, it was just a coincidence. "Can I see you again, Alex?" Ray asked, tugging at my shirt. His mom chimed in, "Please, I insist. Let me properly thank you. I can't just let this go. Also, this handkerchief belongs to you, Mr. Simmers, right? I want to wash it and return it to you." It felt wrong to refuse such a request. We exchanged contact information and agreed to meet again later. "I'm glad I could help, Ray. His mom seems nice too," I thought as we parted ways. After checking my watch, I broke into a cold sweat. -10 minutes had already passed. I hurried but still ended up being 20 minutes late. Thankfully, the client wasn't mad, thanks to my previous good conduct. The problem was Tompkins. As soon as I left the office after the meeting, he berated me furiously, unbothered by the startled passers-by. I thought about the client witnessing this, but I, who was late, had no right to complain. Do you realize how important today's meeting was? 20 minutes late. It's common sense to arrive 20 minutes early. I'm really sorry, but please listen. There was a child about to be hit by a truck. So what? A random child or a business deal? Which do you think is more important? I was shocked and appalled. He valued the deal over a human life. Making excuses is useless. You're fired. Submit your resignation by the end of the day. By the end of today. What about the deal? It was going well. Why are you worried about that? I'll take over. Anything you can do, anyone can do. You think you're special or something. It was just good timing, right? Something inside me snapped. What's the point of working under someone like this? Even if the deal succeeds, Tompkins will take all the credit. Should I accept being fired? I gave up on arguing further. I calculated my remaining paid leave, wrote my resignation, and submitted it to HR. Being forced to write personal reasons as my reason for leaving, I felt nothing anymore. As I cleared my desk, I felt the stares of my colleagues. "Alex, are you really quitting?" A coworker who went to today's meeting with me asked in a low voice. "Yeah, it seems like I'm fired." "That's terrible, just for that." "I appreciate your concern. Take care of yourselves." "Hey, Alex, what are you doing? You're so slow. Get out of here already." Shortly after Tompkins rudely kicked me out, I saw a disturbing article in the news online. My former company had launched a new low-priced product. It was clear that the reform faction had gained power. I couldn't keep up anymore. The company I loved no longer existed. Turning off my smartphone screen, I saw my own troubled reflection. I can't show up at Ray's house with a face like this. 3 days ago, I had received a call from Ray's mother, Emily Smith. She had invited me to their home. I crossed the S crosswalk from that day and used a map app to find their apartment. Pressing the intercom at the building, Emily and Ray came out to greet me. "It's been a while. Thank you for taking the time to come." Though I wasn't busy at all, I kept my response vague. She led me to the living room and served tea and cake. Thinking it would be polite, I asked about Ray's father. "You might be at work, but it was worth asking." "Excuse me, is your husband here? If it's not too much trouble, I'd like to greet him." "My husband. We're divorced." "Oh, I see. Sorry." "No, it's fine." "So she's raising Ray alone." "He's the only family I have." "I can't imagine losing him." "That's why, Alex, you saved Ray's life. And mine as well." "No family. What about your parents?" I asked, thinking she might still have them, but then immediately regretted my intrusive question. Everyone has their own family issues. "Ah, sorry. Forget that question." "No, it's all right. I haven't seen my parents for a long time, as if they are not around anymore." "I'm really sorry to hear that." "Please don't apologize. Today is about expressing my gratitude to you." Emily placed the handkerchief I gave Ray in front of me. It smelled of fabric softener and was perfectly smooth. "Thank you for the handkerchief. You cleaned it so nicely." "Look, Alex, look." Ray suddenly spread out a paper in front of me. It looked like a math test, with all answers circled and a 100 written under Ray Smith. Ray is in first grade. He has a bright future. A perfect score. That's amazing, isn't it? Sorry, Alex. He's just excited about his first perfect score. No, it's wonderful. I felt warm and content listening to more stories about Ray's school. It was a rare and meaningful time for me. I rarely talk to children. Time flies when you're having fun, and it was soon evening. As I was about to leave, Ray looked sad. "Will you come again tomorrow?" "Ray, Alex does work. Don't be demanding." "Well, I'm actually on leave right now. Kind of." "Oh, I see. Alex is fired, right?" Ray blurted out the truth. "What? Actually." I couldn't hide it anymore. I briefly explained my situation. No matter how much I emphasized that it was all for my boss's self-preservation, Emily turned pale. "So you were fired because you saved Ray?" "No, please don't worry about it. I was planning to quit anyway, so it was a good opportunity." But still, Emily lowered her gaze. "I'm really sorry. If I had been there to pick him up..." "No way. The truck driver was at fault, and you had work, right? Nothing is more important than Ray's life," I said, looking at Ray, who had fallen asleep on the sofa. "He was so excited this morning knowing you were coming over." "That's an honor for me." I stood up, trying to alleviate the awkwardness. Emily moved to carry Ray, but I offered to do it instead. I carefully picked him up and carried him to his bedroom, trying not to wake him. Wait, this bed, Ray's bed, was from the company I worked for. Is there something wrong with the bed? No. I used to work for this bed's manufacturer. Really? Yes, I really like their products. I was drawn to the idea of improving sleep quality in life. The policy has changed recently, but until then, I was really proud of what we made. Oh, did you know? I found myself passionately talking about my favorite story from the company. This brand is the most popular in the company. The current president created it for his newborn daughter, wanting her to grow up healthy. It went through several improvements. Employees jokingly call it the doting parent bed, but it's truly a great bed. Normally, babies wake up and cry as soon as they're away from their mother, right? But with this bed, they seem to sleep so peacefully. Is that so? Emily's reaction was muted, and she seemed to be looking off into the distance. Maybe my story wasn't that interesting. I get carried away. Well, hearing about the company that made your furniture might not be that exciting. Sorry for the strange story. No, I can see how much you cared about your company. After quietly leaving the bedroom so as not to wake Ray, I promised to contact her again and left the apartment. A few days later, having used up my paid leave, I went to my workplace for the final resignation procedure. It was my last day at the office. The president was there for an inspection, causing a bit of a stir. "What are you doing here?" Tompkins spotted me immediately. I had hoped to leave without seeing him. "I'm here for my final resignation procedure." "What? You haven't quit yet?" "Just seeing your incompetent face annoys me," he sneered. I ignored his comment and was about to walk past, but someone from HR called us. "Tompkins, Summers, the president wants to see you both." "The president? What did you do?" Tompkins asked, clearly unsettled. "Nothing." "I haven't been here," I replied, truly puzzled about why we were being called. In the reception room, the president looked serious. As we sat down, he turned to Tompkins. "Is it true that you forced Alex to resign?" Tompkins was caught off guard by such a direct question. He seemed as surprised as I was. Trying to remain composed, he answered, "No, there must be some mistake. I don't have such authority." He voluntarily submitted his resignation. It stated personal reasons, I believe. The president then looked at me. "Is that true?" "No," I replied. I was told I was fired for being late to a meeting and instructed to submit my resignation that day. "That's what I've heard from other employees as well," the president said. I hadn't expected anyone to have looked into it. Tompkins was clearly startled. While being late is indeed bad and can affect our relationship with clients, addressing and preventing it is your duty. Why did you tell him he was fired? And did you just lie to me? He stumbled for words but then lifted his face, trying to defend himself. With all due respect, President, it was this guy's fault for being late to the meeting in the first place. Blaming me for his failure is misguided, isn't it? You knew the reason he was late, right? And yet you forced him to submit his resignation. Isn't that true? He said there was a child in danger of an accident, but that's just a made-up excuse, Tompkins replied. No, it's not a lie. I really did. Stop spouting nonsense. Where was this so-called kid anyway? It's just your excuse. Tompkins yelled, forgetting he was in the presence of the president. Suddenly, the door to the reception room opened, and a woman and a child entered. What he's saying is true, the woman said. I was so surprised that I exclaimed out loud, Emily and Ray. My child was about to be in a traffic accident, and Alex saved him, Emily said. Who are you people? Outsiders. Get out, Tompkins shouted, causing Ray to hide behind his mother in fear. However, it wasn't Emily who retorted but the president. Outsiders. Are you calling my daughter and grandson outsiders? daughter. I was the first to react. Catching my gaze, Emily gave a wry smile. I'm sorry for keeping it a secret, Alex. No, really? It then clicked. The president's last name was also Smith. Emily had mentioned she was divorced, so she must have been using her maiden name. Yes, she continued. I contacted you because you were an employee of my father's company. You saved my son's life and then were forced out by your boss. So, after 10 years, you finally reached out, the president said, his tone softening. 10 years. I remembered she had said she was out of touch with her parents, considering them as good as gone. I couldn't ignore such a story, the president said. So, I had my employees investigate. They confirmed that you pressured Alex to resign and that you've been imposing unreasonable quotas on everyone, revealing one problem after another. This is preposterous. You can't just take action without hearing my side. Tompkins still tried to resist. But Ray approached and showed his cell phone. Look, sir. What's this? You got 5 minutes to get here, or you're fired. No matter the reason, I don't need incompetents who can't keep time, Ray quoted, playing a recording. Tompkins's angry voice filled the room. That voice. It's from that time, he exclaimed. I always told Ray to record everything for safety, Emily explained. Ray had realized the seriousness of the accident and had been recording since. As the president returned the phone, he spoke firmly. It seems undeniable that you said he was fired, Tompkins. You're saying it yourself. Cornered by the president's glare, Tompkins finally ran out of excuses. I'll report on the detailed investigation and the appropriate action to be taken later. Leave now, the president instructed. Tompkins exited the room. After he left, the president apologized to me for not being aware of the situation. Also, Alex, if you're willing, I'd like you to continue working here. Don't worry about Tompkins. Please share your thoughts with me. Emily scolded me too. It's hard to find someone who cares about the company as much as you do and who's also a person of character. You regret losing him, she said. I hesitated. I just really like our company's beds. Should I say it? I was planning to leave the company anyway. If there's anything I can say now that I couldn't before, I should say it. To be honest, I'm not very fond of the company's current direction. It feels like we're throwing away our previous experiences and our customers' sentiments in pursuit of profit alone. I don't want to be part of that. I understand, Alex, the president said. But running a company isn't just about ideals. It's not just an ideal. Emily's home has one of our beds. She bought it, right? I said. The president's eyes widened. Is that true, Emily? Yes, she replied. Ray sleeps so well in it. President, you developed that brand with the hope that your daughter would grow up healthy. That sentiment has been passed down to her. So that's how it was, the president said, his tone softening. It was expensive, especially for a single mother like me, Emily continued. But it was worth it if it helped Ray sleep better. I want to provide a better life for those who need our beds. Of course, profit is important, but there are people who need our beds. If there's a way to preserve our approach and protect the company, I would like to work on it. After pondering, the president nodded firmly. All right, I'll appoint you as the project leader. What? A project leader? Pumpkins will be demoted regardless. I want you to take over as manager and research the balance between customer needs and pricing in the field. Yes, sir. You're right. Focusing solely on growing the company is missing the point. We almost betray those who favor our products. He looked at Emily and Ray. I remembered their words about providing a better life for those in need. I created that brand for my awaited daughter out of sheer love. I wanted her to grow up healthy. Profit was secondary. I nearly forgot those feelings. I couldn't believe my voice had reached the president. Thanks to Emily and Ray. I was about to thank them when the president addressed Emily. What's this about being a single mother? Huh. Didn't you elope with some suspicious guy even though you had a fiancé and got disowned for it? Yes. Where did he go? He cheated, so I divorced him. I didn't have the courage to tell you. Should I even be hearing this? The president sighed deeply. I told you to stay away from that man. But it led to Ray's birth, so I don't regret it. Well, that's true. It looked like their relationship as father and daughter might be mended. Subsequently, Tompkins's misdeeds came to light. While I was on leave, other employees had become his targets. After learning about my forced resignation, they began recording his words and actions as evidence. Tompkins tried to make excuses, but the evidence was undeniable. He was transferred to customer service, but lacking the skills, he ultimately resigned voluntarily. I managed to reclaim the billion-dollar deal, successfully negotiating it to completion. The president praised me, and we went out for drinks. I was also working on the development of our brand, which was seeing increasing sales without lowering prices. It's because you believe in and value our products, Alex. Thank you. No, thank you for the opportunity. With your management skills, you could be the next president. No, you're joking. No, I'm serious. Should I take this seriously? Whenever I visited the Smith family for advice, Emily assured me, my father doesn't joke about such things. If I'm expected to fulfill such a role, I want to challenge that. Alex, what's up, Ray? Remember when we went shopping together the other day? Yeah. Well, a kid from my class saw us and said, Ray's dad is so cool. Oh, Ray, stop that. Emily quickly covered Ray's mouth in a panic. Why can't I say that? He may not like to be called Dad. Is that true? Ray looked at me with innocent eyes, leaving me unable to say yes or no. Well, I'd be happy if Alex became my dad. Then we could play every day. Ray. To be honest, I had developed feelings for Emily. As I got to know her and Ray, I found her earnestness and the way she cared for Ray truly admirable. I'd be happy to have a son like Ray, I said, taking the chance. Emily blushed and fumbled for words. Really? Then I'll ask Mom. Ask? Do you mind if Alex becomes my dad? It's not that I mind, but Ray, don't ask such troubling things. She doesn't mind. I'm quite open to the idea. Really? Well, I'm somewhat open to it too, she replied, seemingly not entirely against the idea. Kindness isn't just for others, they say, but I didn't consciously do good deeds. Yet, by holding on to what's important and being honest with people, they truly see you. This is surely important in life. I want to pass on what I've learned to Ray when he's older. I hope he becomes someone who can help others, connect people, and create something valuable. What's the matter? Nothing. With his head hung low, my son Andrew came inside the house without glancing at me. It's fine. I'm not going to work anymore. What are you saying? Give an explanation. He tried to ignore me as he entered, obviously not wanting to speak to us. But when I saw Andrew's back, I was taken aback. The reason for this was that Andrew's back had something stuck to it. The words, "No junior high graduate allowed," were scrawled on a piece of paper. Daniel was most likely responsible for this. When he sent Andrew away, he must have given him a slap. Kevin, my father, who had barged into the business, came right to the point. He canceled the full $20 million transaction as soon as he took a seat. I didn't realize it at the time, but that one remark would turn out to be the catalyst that cornered Daniel. Ryan is my name. I'm a man in my 40s who works for a firm. Kevin, my father, is the company's president, and I help him. My 60-year-old father has a severe disposition and high expectations for everything. Every day can be difficult because he never makes concessions at work. But this also adds a sense of fulfillment to the task, so I would say I feel satisfied every day. Andrew is the name of my son. His childhood desire was to work for a company that made models. He successfully completed the pre-employment exam for a large, distant corporation. He will start working at that company this spring. His dream was going to come true, and as a father, I was ecstatic. I felt like I was the one receiving congratulations when Andrew received the job offer. Since he was a young boy, Andrew has enjoyed putting models together. Therefore, I think it's fantastic. He would undoubtedly feel the same feeling of purpose in his work that I do. Since this organization is quite well known, I honestly thought about getting a job at a regular one. But I didn't want to live my one and only life with regrets. You should live your life as you see fit since it is yours. Since you were a young child, you have enjoyed creating models. I'm happy that you made it through the interview. Congratulations. That's correct. Never quit up or hold back on anything. Life is brief, and if you just sit around, you'll be an old man before you realize it. My wife Samantha and I used these phrases to reassure Andrew when he paused a little. Even my father, who is frequently severe, showed kindness to his grandchild by grinning and saying, "Do your best." Andrew had already chosen his department and completed introducing himself to his new employer. Attending the entry ceremony would be the next step, he said. Normally, this would have been a really joyous moment, but I was a little concerned because Daniel, the boss of the department to which Andrew was transferred, seemed to not like him. Since he doesn't want to bother other people, Andrew tends to bear the load alone when issues emerge since he has a deeper sense of responsibility than most people. Andrew might run into Daniel someplace, even if he wouldn't be at the entry ceremony. All I could hope for was that he would not suffer any harm. A few days later, Andrew woke up to the long-awaited morning of his company entrance ceremony. Although he had been slightly nervous and had trouble sleeping the night before, he didn't look sleep-deprived. Waking up to the sound of sparrows, I made my way from my room to the living room. As I entered, I heard Andrew and Samantha talking, both of them still sounding sleepy. "Did you get enough sleep? You seem a little out of it. You need to wake up properly, you know." "I'm fine. It takes about an hour on the bullet train to get to the company, so I'll wake up by then." When I walked into the room and greeted them, Andrew was already sitting at the table, clearly fresh out of bed. "Good morning." "Oh, good morning. You're up quite early today. Well, today's Andrew's big day, the entrance ceremony." I couldn't sleep because I was nervous for him. It wasn't even my own event, but knowing it was such a turning point in his life left me restless. Incidentally, my father, who lives with us, is an extremely early riser. By the time the rest of us wake up, he's already out of the house. As the company president, I suppose he has many responsibilities to handle. While I was lost in thought, Samantha, who had been preparing breakfast, brought over a plate. On it were 2 slices of bread, a fried egg, and some bacon, which were meant for me. I turned it into a sandwich and started eating. "Andrew, are you all set? You didn't forget anything, did you? And you'll introduce yourself properly to the other employees, right?" "Of course I will. I've been preparing for this day for a while now. Didn't I have you and Mom help me practice for interviews over and over? You even checked my things for me." "That's right." "Ha, you were so eager yesterday." "Yeah, you were like a little kid." I teased him, and Andrew, looking a bit miffed, fired back with a quick retort. That morning, the 3 of us sat around the table, chatting happily, without any idea of what was to come. Once breakfast ended, Samantha joined us at the table, and we started watching TV together. Just then, the news that had been playing earlier was interrupted, and a quiz segment began. It seemed to be about dining etiquette and trivia. The questions were familiar to me, so I answered them with ease. That's called a finger bowl. It's used to clean your fingers. I didn't know such a thing existed. And by the way, with utensils like knives and forks, you're supposed to use the ones placed on the outside first. Samantha looked impressed, and Andrew seemed surprised, which I found oddly satisfying. What was being broadcast on TV seemed like knowledge that had no relevance to an ordinary family like ours. However, because I often encountered such things through my work, I ended up learning them thoroughly. After a few more questions, the quiz ended, and another segment began. Taking the opportunity, I turned to Andrew and asked something that had been on my mind. By the way, you visited the company the other day to introduce yourself, right? How was it? It was fine. The atmosphere was nice, and everyone treated me kindly, so there's no problem at all. That's good. But if anything happens, like trouble or someone bothering you, you need to talk to us about it, okay? I know. There's nothing to worry about. The last time we talked, he seemed a bit uneasy about his manager, but perhaps it had been resolved. I wanted to ask more questions, but I knew better than to interfere too much. Even though he's my son, he's also a fully grown adult. As a parent, the best thing I could do was offer my help only when he needed it. Still, thinking about his childhood often made me overly protective. This tendency of mine stemmed from an incident during his final year of junior high school. About a month before graduation, Andrew had been in an accident while walking across the street. A car that ran a red light hit him. Because of that, he missed his graduation ceremony and didn't go on to high school. I regret not being able to attend the graduation ceremony, but it's all about how you look at things. Since I couldn't go to high school, I can just start working earlier than everyone else. Andrew, who said that, seemed to have decided to start working after recovering, thinking it might as well be the best course of action. And so, Andrew stepped out into the world. Afterward, until he turned 20, he worked part-time at factories. But to be honest, I had hoped he would attend high school properly. Even if he couldn't attend a regular high school, there were other options if we had explained the circumstances. Because of that incident, I couldn't help but worry about him. A person's worth isn't determined by their education, but there are people in the world who judge others based on it. I just hope Andrew wouldn't be hurt by those kinds of people. A few minutes later, Andrew left the house, but as I glanced at the entryway, I let out a small sigh. That kid, after all those reminders, he still forgot something. It seemed he had left his watch by the entrance, so I hurriedly ran out to chase after him. Andrew was taking the bullet train to commute to his workplace. If he boarded it, I wouldn't be able to catch up, so I had to hurry. Luckily, an empty taxi passed by, and I took it to the station. There, I searched for Andrew. However, during the busy morning hours, finding one person in the crowd was a challenge. I walked around for several minutes, but it felt like I wouldn't find him. Just as I was about to give up, I miraculously spotted him. It appeared he was helping a woman in a wheelchair. Thank you so much. I don't know what I would have done if you were late for work because of me. It's fine. There's still plenty of time. Near the elevator, I saw Andrew cheerfully conversing with the woman as he helped her. Seeing that, I felt relieved and was about to say something. However, before I could, Andrew spoke to someone. It turned out to be a male supervisor from work. Daniel. What a coincidence. I didn't know we lived in the same area. His name was Daniel. He was in the same generation as me, in his 40s. It seemed that, like Andrew, he also commuted a long distance. As he was walking toward the bullet train station, I had already heard a bit about Daniel from Andrew. Good morning. My name is Andrew, and I'll be working with you starting today. It's a pleasure to meet you. Although Andrew had introduced himself at the workplace a few days ago, he probably felt it was polite to formally greet him again. Andrew bowed respectfully toward Daniel. However, Daniel didn't respond well. Whether he didn't hear him or chose to ignore him, he just walked on. Andrew, flustered, hurriedly followed him, trying to repeat his greeting. Excuse me. But before Andrew could finish, Daniel cut him off with an irritated voice. Shut up. I heard you just fine. Can't you tell I'm ignoring you on purpose? I froze in place shocked by Daniel's unexpected words. He stopped walking and stared fiercely at Andrew. "I heard you're a junior high school graduate. Don't talk to me like we're equals. Know your place." "What?" "I was just trying to introduce myself." Andrew had done nothing wrong, and yet his educational background seemed to be enough for Daniel to harbor such intense hatred. Andrew had been thinking about happily working at his dream job until this morning, but for something like this to happen. It's just too cruel to be treated with such hostility by his manager on his first day. "You shouldn't even be joining the company. Scum like you doesn't belong here. I strongly oppose your hiring, but HR clearly doesn't know what they're doing." Andrew seemed to be racking his brain, searching for words to defend himself or prove his worth. He opened and closed his mouth several times, but nothing came out. "Don't think you can find any ally here. If you join the company, I'll make sure you and your family regret it. My parents are well connected in this area, you know. It'll be easy to spread rumors." I later heard that Daniel's parents were both school teachers and had a wide network of acquaintances in the local community. Having mentored countless students and built relationships with influential figures in their careers, they had a certain standing in society. If Daniel's family were to maliciously spread rumors, there was no doubt it would reach a lot of people. In reality, his parents were not that kind of people, but neither I nor Andrew knew that at the time, so both of us were completely rattled. I just wanted to get along. In front of me, Andrew hung his head, his voice trembling with tears. It wasn't that Andrew had a weak mentality compared to others, but hearing his family brought into the situation must have left him deeply shaken. Even Mr. Foster, the company president, would be troubled by a junior high school graduate like you. Sure, he might act welcoming for appearance's sake, given his position. After all, he can't write "no low education applicants allowed" on a job listing, can he? Daniel's words referenced Mr. Foster, the president of the company where Andrew was about to work. Mr. Foster was a man who firmly believed everyone deserved a second chance and had created opportunities for people to restart their lives. In fact, I knew him well. He was never the type of person to judge others based on their academic background, but my true feelings couldn't reach Daniel, who was far away. All I could do was watch. In my line of sight, Andrew was trembling, perhaps overwhelmed by the shock. I wanted nothing more than to rush over and encourage him, but I knew it wasn't my place as a parent to interfere. Necessarily clenching my fists tightly, I continued to watch. Eventually, Andrew pulled himself together, looked Daniel straight in the eyes, and began to speak. "You don't have to like me. Just let me work here. I'll do everything I'm told, and I won't be a burden." He kept speaking, asking Daniel not to reject him simply because of his educational background. With unwavering eyes, he bowed repeatedly, his voice filled with determination. However, Daniel remained unmoved. "Is that all you have to say?" Daniel asked. As he said that, he wore a look as if he were staring at something utterly worthless, with an expression full of disdain. Daniel grabbed Andrew's shoulder. It wasn't an action to encourage him or to accept someone with a lower academic background. It was a gesture to reject Andrew as a person. "Just the sight of you makes me sick. I can't bear the thought of having you in the same department," Daniel said. He spun Andrew around to face the station's exit. Seeing this, I quickly turned and decided to head home. Andrew will probably go home too, so when he comes back, I need to be the first to greet him and offer him some reassuring words. As I hurried away, I heard Daniel's cold, cutting voice behind me. "Stop wasting my time, you junior high school graduate. Go home and find some other job." I couldn't even begin to imagine how Andrew must have felt at that moment. What expression did he wear as he walked away? I wanted to know, but I couldn't interfere. He had his pride, and I knew he wouldn't want me to see him in such a humiliating situation. So all I could do was walk back home, clenching my fists in frustration. I started to think about what I needed to do next. If Andrew came home and chose to talk to me about it, I had to be ready to do everything in my power to help him. As a father, I was determined to give him all the support I could. After about 20 minutes, I returned home and explained everything to Samantha as we waited for Andrew. "What's with that scary look on your face? Did you give him his watch?" "Well, a lot happened," I replied. Samantha, holding the tailored clothes Andrew was supposed to wear for the company's formal events, was speechless. After hearing my explanation, her shock quickly turned to anger. Even Samantha, who was usually so calm, couldn't hide her frustration. "That's just awful. Andrew must be so hurt." "Yeah, I want to help him if I can, but it's up to him to decide what to do next." As we were having this conversation, Andrew returned home. I quickly grabbed my work bag, pretending I was just about to leave for work. In my haste, I forgot to hide the formal clothes I had left out for a party, but thankfully, Andrew didn't seem to notice. He avoided making eye contact with us. "Andrew," I called out, "I thought you already left for work." I acted as if I knew nothing, but Andrew didn't respond. He simply stood there, silent and unmoving. Samantha, trying to help, stepped in next. "Did you forget something? You'll be late if you don't hurry back and grab it." "It's not that." Andrew finally spoke, his voice cracking as he looked up at me with tear-filled eyes. I called out to Andrew, silently pleading, "Please just talk to me. What happened?" "Nothing." Andrew hung his head low and walked further into the house. "It's over. I'm not going to the company anymore." "What do you mean?" I asked. "Explain it to us." He probably wanted to avoid talking to us and was trying to ignore us as he went into the house. However, I was startled when I saw something stuck on Andrew's back. It was a piece of paper with the words "No junior high graduate allowed" written on it. It had to be Daniel's doing. He must have stuck it on Andrew's back when he sent him away. I pulled the paper off and held it in my hand, praying that Andrew would open up to us. "Can't you tell us what's going on? Are we so unreliable that you can't come to us?" Hearing those words, Andrew finally broke down, tears filling over as he looked at me. It seemed my words had reached him as Andrew began to speak from there, telling us everything. I held Andrew tightly as he cried, comforting him. In life, there are things we can't face alone, and it's never wrong to lean on someone when we need help. I made sure to tell Andrew this. A few minutes later, as soon as I finished listening to Andrew, I called my father. Though he was already at the company, he promised without hesitation to help his grandson. I couldn't stand idly by either. After giving Andrew the watch he'd forgotten, we quickly left the house and headed to his company. But Andrew, ever thoughtful, felt guilty about dragging me and his grandfather into the situation. As soon as we sat down on the bullet train, he began to apologize. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm such a mess. Even at this age, I can't even handle my own problems." "Don't say that. You've grown into a kind, considerate son who cares about his family. I could never blame you for this. Besides, this time, the other side is the one being unfair. There's no shame in accepting my help." As I said this, I reached over and patted his head, trying to comfort him. I thought back to the time Andrew was lying in that hospital bed after his accident, apologizing for what had happened. Even though he's an adult now, he's still my child, the one I will always protect. After about an hour, we arrived at Andrew's company. At the reception desk, I introduced myself, and they immediately escorted us to a meeting room. There, we reunited with my father, and 3 generations of our family sat together, waiting. It was strange to think that we all be gathered here under these circumstances. "Why did they respond so quickly when you gave your name, Dad? Grandpa, are you hiding something from me?" Andrew looked surprised, clearly taken aback by how promptly we were accommodated. In the meantime, the office became increasingly chaotic, and a man appeared, approaching us nervously, visibly sweating. It was Mr. Foster, the president we had worked with many times before. Once my father had settled himself into his seat, he immediately cut to the chase. Cancel the entire $20 million deal. That one sentence was enough to corner Daniel. Whether the deal would actually be canceled or not was beside the point. My father said it to ensure Mr. Foster understood the gravity of the situation. At that moment, however, Andrew, who was with us, had no idea what was going on and looked utterly confused. He stared at me intently, as if demanding an explanation. I couldn't exactly leave him in the dark, so I leaned over and explained the situation in a low voice. Actually, our company has a business relationship with this one. I see. Mr. Foster, quite often. Really? You never told me that. Sorry, but it couldn't be helped. Confidentiality obligations and all that. Andrew had been working for several years, albeit for a short time, out in the world. I heard that his work mainly involved physical labor in factories, so he didn't have many opportunities to handle confidential information. Still, he should have understood. He should know that sharing information obtained through work carelessly with others is unacceptable. Given how unexpected this must have been for him, though, his reaction was understandable. After all, neither my father nor I ever discussed work at home. On weekends, I usually spent my time watching TV or chatting casually with Samantha. My father, too, often spent his time tending to the garden or enjoying a game of chess with the elderly members of the community. It was no wonder Andrew had no idea. At the company, I assist my father, who's the president. I often accompany him to meetings with other executives, so it's not unusual for me to know other company presidents. Exactly as a president, it's crucial to maintain strong connections with other companies. On that note, Ryan has been a great help. His approachable nature allows him to communicate smoothly with anyone. He and Mr. Foster have a long history and are on good terms. Hearing this, Andrew's eyes widened in disbelief. Throughout my life, I had accumulated a wealth of knowledge and skills, which I now used in a role similar to that of a secretary. I advised on management decisions, offered solutions to internal company issues, and supported the business in any way I could. After explaining that, I awkwardly added a few more words. Well, my father and I can't actually cancel the deal on a whim. Sometimes, though, you have to say something drastic to make your anger clear. Unlike Andrew, who had only graduated junior high school, I had completed a prestigious university at the top of my class. I used the knowledge I'd gained there to support the employees and operations of our company. Still, I chose not to bring up the past, as it wasn't something Andrew needed to hear. My father had also graduated from a respectable university with excellent marks. Perhaps to avoid pressuring Andrew as the grandson of such an accomplished family, my father too had chosen to remain silent. Sensing a pause in the conversation, Mr. Foster cautiously spoke. So, did one of my employees offend your son in some way? His humility seemed unbecoming a company president, but given our history, it was understandable. Pretending not to mind, I continued speaking. Well, something quite serious happened. You see, over the next 10 minutes, Andrew and I took turns explaining the situation. This is unbelievable. This isn't just a business problem. Using someone's family to make threats? That's completely unacceptable as a human being. Mr. Foster paled, his face filled with shame. I'm deeply sorry for the serious misconduct of one of my employees. I'll call him here immediately to get to the bottom of this. He bowed deeply, apologizing sincerely. After a firm apology, he promised to summon Daniel. At that moment, Mr. Foster regained his composure, embodying the dignity expected of a company president. A few minutes later, Daniel, who had been summoned, entered with a puzzled look on his face. He greeted Mr. Foster properly and introduced himself politely to my father and me. However, the moment his eyes landed on Andrew, his expression twisted in confusion and suspicion. It was clear he couldn't understand why Andrew was even there. Seeing this, Mr. Foster immediately scolded him. "Hey, that's rude. Say hello to Andrew as well." Daniel then looked back and forth between Andrew and Mr. Foster with a bewildered expression, as if to say, "What?" After a few seconds of hesitation, he carefully chose his words and spoke to Mr. Foster. Pardon me, Mr. Foster, but perhaps you're mistaking this man for someone else. He's not the kind of person who belongs in a place like this." Hearing this, Mr. Foster's face sank with visible disappointment. "And who gave you the authority to decide that? Whether or not he belongs here is for me to determine. Don't you think that may be true, but I assumed you didn't know who this man really is. I may not know every detail, but I have more than enough reason for him to be here." Daniel's expression grew even more puzzled at Mr. Foster's words. "For now, sit down on the sofa. I understand there's some history between you and Andrew, but I don't know the finer details yet." As instructed, Daniel sat down on the sofa, seemingly thinking that Andrew had said something unnecessary. Glaring fiercely at Andrew, he silently opened his mouth. It looked like he was trying to say something through lip movements. I couldn't make out what he was saying, but he probably wanted to tell Andrew something like, "Don't say anything more ridiculous, Mr. Foster. There's really no reason to discuss this here. I don't know what you're worried about, but it's nothing that warrants your concern." The moment Daniel said that, the atmosphere surrounding Mr. Foster shifted. The cold air surrounding Mr. Foster felt sharp and unyielding, entirely unlike his earlier demeanor. "How many times must I say this? It's not for you to decide. There won't be a third morning. Watch your tongue if you know what's good for you." "I'm sorry." Daniel's face went pale, his body visibly trembling. Even Andrew seemed intimidated, his shoulders trembling slightly. "I've heard enough to know there was some trouble on the way to work this morning. I was told that you told Andrew not to come to work because he's a junior high school graduate. Is that accurate?" "That's completely wrong. I only said it out of kindness. It sounds like I had bad intentions, but I didn't." "Oh, out of kindness, you say? So, threatening to spread bad rumors about his family. That was also an act of kindness." Mr. Foster's tone was calm, almost gentle, but the coldness in his demeanor remained chilling. The softness of his voice contrasted with the sharpness in his eyes, making him all the more intimidating. Daniel, shaking uncontrollably, tried desperately to defend himself. "That's nonsense. I didn't say anything like that. And honestly, if someone skips the entrance ceremony just because of a little strong advice, that's on them. He's an irresponsible new hire. I'm sure he's lying." It was at that moment that I first thought about the time when I looked at the watch on my wrist. I realized that the entrance ceremony was already over. With everything that had happened, I had forgotten. But Andrew was supposed to be attending that ceremony. Thinking about how he should have been there, feeling proud and happy, made me a little sad. Carrying that feeling, I turned to Daniel and began to speak. "I'd appreciate it if you refrained from insulting my son. If we're talking about dishonesty, someone who resorts to cowardly tactics like what you've done seems far more likely to be lying." Even my father could no longer remain silent. His voice, heavy and commanding, cut through the tension. "Speaking ill of others doesn't elevate you. If anything, it only diminishes your own worth. You should remember that." Daniel flinched visibly as if struck by the words and fell silent. Still, perhaps thinking that saying nothing wouldn't change the situation, he began to speak in a low, hesitant voice. "I didn't put up any papers. That's ridiculous. I'd never do something so foolish." In denying it, Daniel unknowingly dug himself into a deeper hole. Mr. Foster's voice turned ice cold as he delivered his next words. "I never mentioned anything about a paper. Why would you think that?" "That's because, well, I just assumed. If it's harassment, then maybe something like a note would be involved." As he stubbornly tried to make excuses over and over, Mr. Foster silenced him with a sharp reprimand. The intensity of his anger was unimaginable compared to the timid demeanor he had when we first met. Enough already. Admit to what you've done. Daniel's face crumbled, and at last he broke down, his voice shaking. I'm sorry. It was all my fault. Please forgive me. Daniel, now on the verge of tears, bit his lip as he glanced at us. But there were still things he needed to explain. Why did you do something like this? When Mr. Foster asked, Daniel began to speak with a serious expression. Because he's a junior high school graduate. If someone with a low academic background works here, it disrupts the order of our company. They won't perform well, and nothing good can come from it. Daniel spoke as though expecting Mr. Foster's agreement. His previously weak voice grew stronger, as if he had found confidence in his reasoning. I admit my methods were immature. I should have explained things to him properly so he could understand his shortcomings. But I don't think what I was trying to achieve was wrong. It was clear that Daniel's mindset was fundamentally flawed. Hearing his explanation, Mr. Foster pressed his hand to his temple as though fighting off a headache. So you're saying that people with low educational backgrounds like Andrew don't belong here? That your actions may have been wrong, but driving him away was correct? And that you still don't want him working here? Exactly, Mr. Foster. I'm glad you understand what I mean. Daniel's face brightened as though he had finally found someone who agreed with him. He failed to notice the deep disappointment in Mr. Foster's gaze. With a long sigh, Mr. Foster finally responded. I don't understand why you look down so much on those with lower education. There are all kinds of people in the world. Deciding someone's worth without even getting to know them is wrong, don't you think? I don't need to know them to understand. People with low education never fit into society. It's just obvious. Hearing Daniel's words, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of curiosity. What on earth had he seen throughout his life? Perhaps he had witnessed countless terrible actions by people with little education. As it turned out, I was right. Near my house, there's a rundown high school. I've seen it all. Kids shouting at all hours, causing trouble, and disturbing everyone. I was sick of it every single day. I have a lot on my mind, but I understand that he's been troubled by people from that high school throughout his life. I sympathize with him, but I can't stand the thought of Andrew being seen as the same. I understand where you're coming from, Daniel, but don't impose your personal views on our grandson. Isn't that right, Mr. Foster? Indeed. For this, you'll face a small punishment. What's unfortunate is that this is your first offense. You'll be punished for sending a new employee home on your own. Additionally, you must apologize to Andrew for judging him based on his education. That's completely unacceptable. That said, I can understand some of the frustration you felt. After a moment of thought, Mr. Foster announced that Daniel's punishment would be cleaning the company's restrooms for 1 month. Daniel looked dissatisfied, but reluctantly accepted. He also apologized to Andrew for the note and his inappropriate threats regarding his family. With Daniel's punishment settled, my father took the opportunity to discuss our company's future business relationship with Mr. Foster. Amidst the business of work, opportunities to step into another company are limited. He likely thought to take care of anything that needed to be done while he was there. While my grandson's well-being is important, we also have a responsibility to the employees who rely on us. I simply moved up a previously planned discussion. I've also managed to negotiate slightly better terms for our deal moving forward. As both a president and a person, there still seems to be much I can learn from my father. I've been assisting him for many years, but during this incident, I nearly lost my composure at times, making me realize how far I still have to go. After this, Andrew officially began working at the company the next day alongside Daniel. Andrew has been working hard to earn his recognition in the product development department, where they design model prototypes and brainstorm ideas for new products. He seems to be giving it his all, sacrificing sleep to keep up the effort. He told me that he's inspired every day and that it's so much more fulfilling than when he was just an ordinary company employee. Whenever Andrew shared updates about his work with Samantha and me, his face is always bright and full of energy. Seeing him, I realized how much achieving a dream and landing one's ideal job can truly change a person. However, that initial happiness didn't last long. Before long, Andrew was relegated to menial tasks. "Daniel, isn't there anything I can help with? I'll do anything." "I already told you, you're in the way. Stop talking to me. There's nothing you're capable of handling." Andrew pleaded with Daniel to let him contribute more, but Daniel, still holding on to his prejudice, refused to give him any real responsibilities. He must still think that people with little education are of no use. I find that to be utterly foolish. It seems Daniel's way of thinking wasn't accepted by those around him, as his colleagues began to criticize his actions. "Poor Andrew, he's working so hard, yet Daniel says he's incapable." Judging someone based on their education alone is cruel. Why can't Daniel see what's right in front of him? Academic background doesn't determine a person's true worth. We can all see that Andrew is a good, hard-working man. The problem is that Daniel isn't really looking at him. He's filtering everything through his own biases. According to Andrew's colleagues, the department had never employed someone with a junior high or high school diploma before. Still, they all expressed the same opinion. Daniel was never the type to harass others. I can't believe he's behaving like this. It seemed that Daniel was kind and accommodating toward people with backgrounds similar to his own. However, this incident made him realize just how distorted his values had become, and the shock of it was clear. Isn't my way of thinking normal? Up until now, everyone I spoke to agreed with me. Surrounded by people who shared similar beliefs for most of his life, Daniel hadn't had a reason to question his worldview. This time, though, something shifted in him. Perhaps it was the first time he felt the need to reflect on his own actions. He voluntarily requested a demotion and became a regular employee. Not only that, but he also decided to transfer to another department. He decided, after discussing with the HR team, to work in an area where employees with lower academic backgrounds were more prevalent. He wanted to challenge his own values and look at the world from a different perspective. His decision struck me as extreme, but I respected his determination not to go easy on himself. From what I later heard, adjusting to this new environment wasn't easy for him. The work was unfamiliar, and he often had to rely on the kindness of senior colleagues. Still, Andrew later told me that Daniel had been working hard, reflecting on his mistakes every day and coming to terms with his previously flawed mindset. A year passed. Today is the day of the anniversary party for the company where Andrew works. As expected of a large corporation, the event is being held in a spacious hall rented out at a hotel. My father and I were also invited, and it was there that we saw Daniel again for the first time in a long while. He had changed so much that he was unrecognizable compared to a year ago. When Daniel and Andrew crossed paths, it was also their first meeting in a long time. After exchanging updates about their lives, Daniel suddenly bowed deeply. "I'm truly sorry for what I did back then. My way of thinking was wrong. Please forgive me." Daniel shared how tough the past year had been for him. He admitted that he often relied on senior colleagues for help and even struggled with injuries while adjusting to the new work environment. When his prejudice against others' academic backgrounds was revealed, some colleagues ridiculed him. On top of that, there was also a time when he angered the son of an executive, which caused quite a stir. Apparently, he was even threatened that harm would come to his family. After experiencing the same kind of exclusion, I finally understood how Andrew must have felt. I did something truly awful, and I'm ashamed of myself. But it was clear that Daniel had grown tremendously as a person through those hardships. For both Andrew and Daniel, the events of a year ago had been anything but pleasant. However, it was clear that those experiences were necessary for their growth. Later that evening, my father and I had a chance to speak with Mr. Foster. "You've grown stronger. You're a much more capable president than you were a year ago. It's all thanks to Ran. When I was just starting out, I'll never forget the support you gave me back then. Oh, I'd love to hear more about that. Any stories about my son's achievements are always of interest to me. I told my father about the time when Mr. Foster was just an ordinary employee. It feels like a distant memory now, but back then, I taught him many of the basic social norms he didn't yet understand. Interesting. Andrew has grown into a responsible, family-oriented young man, and you, Ryan, have become someone who values the connections you make. Come on, you're embarrassing me. Truly, I owe so much to Ryan. I was just a privileged boy, sheltered by my parents. When I entered the real world, I didn't know a thing. If I hadn't met Ryan at that small bar and received his guidance, I wouldn't be where I am today. At the time, I thought he was an unreliable man. But that same person is now the president of a company that has become one of our business partners. Not only that, it's also the company where my son Andrew works. It's funny how life brings people together in unexpected ways. After enjoying myself at the party, I returned home and spent time talking with my family about various things. A year ago, I couldn't have imagined it, but Andrew has grown into someone I can truly rely on. He's learned to lean on others and no longer tries to carry everything on his own. Now, Andrew was planning to gift us a trip as a token of his gratitude. Dad, Mom, and Grandpa, let's go on a trip soon. I managed to get tickets for a nice hotel and some leisure facilities. Please keep your schedules open. You really are such a thoughtful young man, but for now, you should focus on settling into your job. That's right. As your parents, we just did what any parent would. A year has passed. It's time I did something to give back. Andrew truly is a kind and thoughtful person. He's responsible and family-oriented. On top of that, he has a genuine compassion for anyone who is struggling. Well, since Andrew went through the effort of getting these tickets, I'll make sure to clear my schedule. You're a busy company president. Can you make it work? I'll do my best. This is a special gift from my grandson, after all. Life will surely bring more challenges in the future, but I believe that Andrew, with the support of those around him, will be able to overcome them. After all, that's what it means to live. We help one another, support each other, and keep moving forward. Even Daniel managed to grow and overcome his flaws thanks to the help of Mr. Foster and the senior employees at his new workplace. No matter how difficult the challenges ahead may seem, as long as we don't give up and continue fighting, I believe we can always make it through. Please save my grandfather. I'm begging you. One day, my life took a different turn, and I found myself in a position where it appeared difficult to resume my profession as a doctor, even though I had been working as a top-tier neurosurgeon overseas. After 10 years, I went back to my hometown to recuperate. I met up with my lovely childhood buddy there, but her granddad unexpectedly passed out. I comforted her by holding her shoulder tenderly while she sobbed and begged for assistance, saying, "I'm not just going to save your grandfather, I'll save you too." Preserve me? What does that mean to you? I gave her a strong nod while maintaining eye contact. After 3 months, I'm Kai Nelson, a neurosurgeon who is 38 years old and on leave for personal reasons. I had left for a foreign country to further my career 10 years ago, and I had never been back to my hometown. I've taken multiple medical conferences on the mainland US, but because my hometown is on a far-off island, I usually took a plane right back after the meetings. Who would have guessed that this was the reason I returned to my hometown? I looked out at the vast ocean as I boarded the plane headed for Hawaii. People were going about their everyday lives as usual somewhere. The island's silhouette slowly approached as I considered this. When I was 15, I left for a boarding school on the mainland because there was no high school on the island and I wanted to become a doctor. I used to visit the island once or twice a year, but until recently, I didn't feel very homesick for my birthplace. Perhaps my body has weakened, or perhaps I miss it because I'm getting older. I was forced to think as the plane began to descend and trembled a little. I eventually landed in my own country after switching to a smaller aircraft headed for my isolated island. A cane-wielding old man came up to me. "Are you Kai from the Nelson family?" "Oh, you're the guy from the fishing shop, right?" "You're correct. You've grown tall, yet your face hasn't changed much, even if I'm an old man now." I immediately recognized you. "Really?" I rubbed my head, a little ashamed. "Hasn't it been a long time since you returned? I've heard you're doing well as a doctor you got abroad." "Yes, that's true, but I've been unwell, so I'm here to recover." "Is that correct? It must be difficult to be a doctor. Rest and take your time." "Thank you, I will." After saying goodbye to the elderly man, I made my way to my family's house, which was a 15-minute walk uphill from the harbor. Huff. Huff. It looks like it will be difficult for me to regain my stamina. In order to catch my breath, I had to pause. As I wiped the perspiration from my forehead, I noticed that one side of my body was still slightly paralyzed. I couldn't express how amazed I was by the view when I turned around at the top of the hill. Amazing. An unending panorama of the sea in all directions. This view felt fresh and breathtaking, even though I had seen it numerous times before. "Welcome home, Kai. It's been a while. The trip was long, wasn't it? How's your health?" My mother, who lived alone on the island, greeted me warmly. "I'm back. Yeah, I had surgery and rested a bit over there, so I'm fine for daily life. But maybe my immunity is low, so I feel like I'm catching a cold. 3 months ago, I collapsed from a subarachnoid hemorrhage. It happened so suddenly that I only contacted my mother after the surgery was over. When I called her via video chat, she was understandably worried and in tears. To calm her down, I promised to return to the island after my rehabilitation. There was no way I could tell her I might never return to being a doctor. I made sure to move carefully so she wouldn't notice the lingering discomfort in my body. That day, after finishing surgery and meeting with a patient in my office, I suddenly lost track of where I was and what I was doing. I remember seeing the shocked face of the patient as I collapsed. That was the last thing I saw before losing consciousness. "Dr. Nelson, are you okay?" When I came to, awakened by a colleague's voice, I was already in the ICU. My surgery had been completed, but I was the patient this time. Even doctors can fall ill, of course. That's to be expected, but I'm only 38. Luckily, I was able to undergo emergency surgery at the hospital where I worked, and my life was saved. Looking back, I didn't feel a headache that morning, but it wasn't bad enough to take the day off. If I had stayed home and collapsed there instead, who knows what might have happened. If you're feeling under the weather, you should visit the clinic and get some medicine. Yeah, I'll do that. The island has a small clinic that serves as the lifeline for its 800 residents. I decided to visit the clinic the very day I arrived. Well, if it isn't Kai. The doctor in the clinic called out in surprise. When I was shown into the examination room, "Dr. Hastings, it's been a long time." This doctor, who had been around since my childhood, was once a young physician, but now had a head full of white hair. It was through my interactions with him at this clinic as a child that I first became interested in becoming a doctor. "You haven't been here all this time, have you?" I asked as I took off my jacket. "Not at all. This is my 4th stint here after working at hospitals on the mainland. Rural medicine is tough, but I hear you've made a name for yourself as a neurosurgeon overseas. What brings you back?" "Well, I've been unwell, so I'm taking a break from work and came back to recuperate." I shared my story with Dr. Hastings. "I see. Doctors are human too, after all. As frustrating as it is, illness doesn't discriminate." As Dr. Hastings examined me with his stethoscope, a nurse appeared behind him. I glanced at her face and felt a sense of familiarity. Wait a second, are you Mal? The nurse looked startled and turned to me. Kai, is that you? Yeah, it's me. It's been a long time, hasn't it? What, 20 years? Malia, a nurse at the clinic, had been my classmate from kindergarten through high school. Back then, she was an outstanding student, always competing with me for the top spot in our grade. Not only was she incredibly smart, but she was also stunningly beautiful, approachable, and kind, making her a magnet for attention. Unlike other boys, though, I never saw her as anything but a rival for academic dominance. Still, we were close as childhood friends while attending our small island middle school. But once we started attending separate high schools on the mainland, we stopped talking. At our high school, students' names and their chosen universities were posted in the hallway as they decided on their future. I don't recall ever seeing Malia's name up there before we graduated. With her brilliance, she could have gone anywhere. I even heard through the grapevine that she wanted to become a doctor, but we never reconnected, and I left for college in California. I heard you were thriving as a doctor at a prestigious hospital overseas. What brings you here? Before I could answer, Melia, Dr. Hastings, interjected, You two can catch up all you want after the exam. Oh, sorry, Dr. Hastings. My apologies, Melia said with a small laugh, sticking her tongue out playfully. That little gesture caught me off guard and made my heart skip a beat. Even though Melia was now 38, she looked much younger. What's wrong with me? What am I even thinking? Even as I thought that, her gaze lingered on me throughout the exam, making me worry that the stethoscope might pick up the pounding of my chest. When are you off work? Want to grab a bite to eat somewhere? As I slipped my arms back into my jacket, I asked her, Kay, you really don't stop to consider whether or not I might have a family, do you? She chuckled softly. Oh, sorry. So you're married. Of course you are, she said, feeling embarrassed. I scratched my head. I was just thinking of it as an old classmates' reunion. No ulterior motives or anything. Melia smiled warmly and shook her head. No, I'd understand. I'm sorry for saying something weird. I'd love to have dinner with you, Kai, but I live alone with my grandfather, so I need to get back home. Why don't you come over instead? Sure, I'd be happy to. While I would have preferred to talk with her one-on-one, this arrangement would have to do. Still, something about this situation tugged at me. Melia's grandfather, who had been the village chief for years, was a prominent figure on the island. From my childhood memories, he was a stern, stubborn man. Back then, none of our classmates wanted to visit Melia's house because of him. Remembering this, I found myself feeling nervous as I arrived at her home, standing before the imposing gate of her grand family estate. I hesitated for a moment. What's this feeling? Melia and I are just childhood friends. I'd never had this experience. But I imagined it felt similar to the nerves of asking for a family's blessing to marry someone. I followed Melia inside and into the living room, still feeling a bit uneasy. Melia, you're 5 minutes later than usual. Who's that man? A burly, stern-faced old man sat on a cushion, glaring at me. Grandpa, this is Kai, my childhood friend. You remember him, don't you? Her grandfather, Keone, furrowed his brows, thinking for a moment before speaking. Ah, yes, the son of that family who sold off all their ancestral land to make him a doctor. Such sacrilege. Grandpa, that's uncalled for. Melia protested on my behalf, but Keone just snorted and turned away. I'm going to bed. You can talk, but stay in the main room. No disappearing into another room alone. Yes, Grandpa. Good night. Without looking back, Keone retreated to his room, but I noticed his gait was unsteady and his hands seemed to tremble. I'm sorry, Kai. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Is your grandfather unwell? He didn't seem quite himself. His body isn't as cooperative as it used to be, but he's 82 years old now, so it's probably just age catching up with him. I hope that's all it is. The Keone I remembered was always scowling and intimidating, which is why no one ever wanted to visit Melia's house as kids. You must be hungry. I cooked before work this morning. It's mostly food my grandfather likes, though. If I'd known you were coming, I would have made something special. Melia blushed slightly as she laid the dishes around the table. They were chicken long rice, poke, luo leaves with kalua pork, and hapia for dessert, all of which were Hawaiian dishes. I've missed this kind of homemade Hawaiian meal. They look amazing. Really, I'm glad. Melia smiled and sat across from me. As we shared the meal, we caught up on each other's lives. Despite the years apart, we naturally bonded over childhood memories, but when the conversation shifted to adulthood, Melia's tone grew somber. I'm so envious of you, Kai, working in a prestigious hospital abroad. You really achieved your dream. She smiled, but her expression carried a hint of sadness. You wanted to be a doctor too, didn't you? I always thought you'd be out there practicing somewhere. I explained how I'd graduated from medical school, completed a residency program to hone my skills, and eventually secured a position as a neurosurgeon in a foreign hospital. My work often took me around different regions where I conducted surgeries and provided training. I had left for overseas 10 years ago. With her talent and drive, Melia could have easily achieved her dreams as well. My grandfather wouldn't let me leave the island. Melia's voice dropped to a whisper as she began to explain her situation. Her family was ruled by Keone's strict principles. Even her parents never dared to oppose him. Keone believed that women belonged in the home. He disapproved of her leaving to study medicine, insisting instead that she marry a man involved in local politics or administration and carry on the family legacy. Meanwhile, my family had sacrificed everything for my education. My father, an office worker, took out loans and even sold our ancestral land, as Keone had scornfully mentioned. My family managed to scrape together enough funds. Melia's family, in contrast, had wealth and would never have struggled to pay tuition. Melia had everything she needed to become a doctor, but Keone's opposition forced her to reluctantly give up on her dream. He said if I was so determined to work in healthcare, he'd allow me to be a nurse at the clinic as long as I stayed on the island. So I went to nursing school under that condition. I see. I looked at Melia, who sat with her head slightly bowed. Working as a nurse at the clinic is fulfilling. The islanders rely on me, and I enjoy what I do, but even getting this job was through my grandfather's connections. He's been setting me up with matchmaking meetings, but none have worked out, so I am still single. Melia's father, who worked for a major corporation, was frequently transferred for work. Her mother, unable to get along with Keone, had left the family. I managed to achieve my dream and repay my parents, but a doctor who falls ill and can't work is just another person. I'm a neurosurgeon, but I suffered a brain illness at this young age and still have lingering discomfort. I'm terrified of not being able to return to the field. When I expressed my fears, Melia, who had been downcast moments before, smiled warmly, perhaps trying to cheer me up. How long are you staying here, Kai? About a month. That's great. There's a festival this month. I think it'll be a nice change of pace. Want to go together? I remembered the festival from my childhood. It had always been a highlight of the year. Sure, let's go together, I agreed. After enjoying dinner, I left Melia's home feeling much lighter. On the day of the village festival, I met up with Melia near the main venue. Sorry to keep you waiting, Kai, she said. I turned at the sound of her voice and saw her in a vibrant mumo, which is traditional Hawaiian clothing. Do you think it's too childish? I just really like this color. It suits you perfectly. It really brings out the best in you. I found myself dazzled by her presence, but I played it cool, trying not to show my nervousness. The festival was alive with food stalls and games. Despite being almost 40, Malia and I ran around like kids, laughing and enjoying ourselves. But a single sentence from her snapped me back to reality. My grandfather will be giving a speech as the village chief. We should go watch. When we reached the stage, a crowd had already gathered. Keone stood at the microphone, clearing his throat. We watched as he began his speech. Good evening, everyone. As your village chief, I am honored to welcome you to this festival. Today's weather has blessed us, and on such an auspicious day. Keone started strong, but then his words faltered. Grandpa. Malia's voice trembled as she spoke. In the next moment, Keone collapsed onto his knees and fell to the stage floor. Panic erupted around us. Voices shouted, "Call the clinic doctor and get the medevac helicopter." Grandpa. Malia, and I pushed through the crowd toward Keone, who was lowered from the stage. He was unconscious and not moving a muscle. One of the participants brought a car around, and we carried him in. We headed to the heliport to wait for a doctor's helicopter coming from the Hawaii Island General Hospital. When the medevac arrived, both Lee and I accompanied Keone to the hospital. After initial tests, we were called into the consultation room to hear the results. This is a problematic location for a tumor, I said immediately, recognizing the issue as I examined the CT scan. Dr. Morton, who examined the patient, also had a difficult look on his face. That is not unreasonable. It is because the tumor is located in a very delicate area near the center of the brain. If the tumor continues to grow, surgery will become even more complicated. Considering his advanced age, we also have to evaluate whether he can endure the procedure. Dr. Morton's hesitation was evident as he explained the situation. Keone was the village chief and a prominent figure in the community. It was clear that Dr. Morton was reluctant to take on such a high-risk surgery. "Please, I beg you, save my grandfather," Malia pleaded through tears. Just then, a nurse rushed into the room. "The patient has regained consciousness in the ICU." Keone opened his eyes and noticed Malia. With a faint nod, he acknowledged her presence. Malia held Keone's hand tightly as tears streamed down her face. And I couldn't help but think, despite having her dream crushed by her grandfather, Malia is such a kind and caring granddaughter. I gazed at Malia's profile. After a week in the hospital, Keone was discharged and returned home. Dr. Morton said, "We need to discuss as a family whether to proceed with surgery. The medication is helping for now, but there's no telling when another episode might occur. At my age, I should probably retire as village chief as well." Keone sat slumped. "I am a scary and stubborn old man, but I am known for my political skills. A sea route between this remote island and the big island of Hawaii is scheduled to be launched next year to spread risk in the event of a disaster and to expand tourism sales channels. This is also the result of Keone's longtime efforts to reach out to influential people. I'll perform the surgery." Both Malia and Keone stared at me in shock. "I'll do the surgery at my hospital. I promise I'll cure you." "You're saying you can perform this surgery yourself?" "Yes, I can do it." Keone fell silent, clearly deep in thought. "Give me some time to consider. I'll talk it over with Malia and make a decision." "Of course. Take all the time you need." A week later, as my thoughts began to drift toward preparing for my return, I was called to Malia's house. Entering the living room, I was surprised to find Keone waiting in a formal aloha shirt, looking composed and respectful, quite unlike the man who had scorned me earlier. As I sat across from him, he slowly began to speak. "First, Kai, I owe you an apology. The other day, I insulted your parents, who worked so hard to put you through medical school. I am truly sorry." Keone bowed deeply, and Malia, sitting beside him, followed suit. Taken aback, I quickly urged them to lift their heads. "Please, there's no need for that. I'm okay, really," I said, trying to reassure them. "I've been a stubborn fool. I crushed Melia's dream of becoming a doctor and forced her into countless unwanted matchmaking meetings. I made her life far more restrictive than it should have been. Looking back, I regret it deeply. But Melia still wishes for me to stay healthy and keep fighting. And I want to continue serving the village and the island. So I asked you, Kai, would you take me to your hospital and perform the surgery to save me? Without hesitation, I replied, I will, but I have one request. A request? Keon looked puzzled. Please this time, give Melia the chance to pursue her dream. Melia gasped, her eyes wide in surprise. Anyone can become a doctor, no matter their age. If she doesn't try, she'll regret it for the rest of her life. I'll support her every step of the way. Becoming a doctor now. Melia exclaimed, visibly shaken. It's impossible. I'm too old to start something like that. Keelan, however, spoke firmly. Melia, if you still want to try, then do it. I'll support you. Grandpa, it may feel like it's too late, but it's never too late to live freely. I'm truly fortunate to have a granddaughter like you. I am a very lucky man. I watched warmly as they held each other's hands, tears glistening in their eyes. I returned to my hospital ahead of them to prepare for Kyom's surgery and focused intently on my rehabilitation, determined to be in top form. My efforts paid off, and the lingering discomfort in my left side almost completely disappeared. 3 months later, Melia and Keon arrived at the hospital, ready for his surgery. Kai, please save my grandfather, Melia pleaded, clutching my arm just before I entered the operating room. I'm not just going to save your grandfather, Melia. I'm going to save you too. What? Me? She asked, confused. Trust me. Just wait here with peace of mind, I said with a reassuring smile as I stepped into the operating room. Surgery on an 80-year-old is far riskier than it would be on a younger patient. Time was not on our side. The tumor was in a challenging location and had grown to the size of a golf ball. However, by minimizing the strain on his elderly body, I successfully completed the surgery. Dr. Nelson, congratulations. What an amazing comeback. Welcome back. My colleagues showered me with words of praise. Who would have thought I'd be back in the operating room so soon? A profound sense of accomplishment filled my heart. Melia and Keon stayed for about a month, but tomorrow they were set to return to the island. Strange. I feel a little lonely, I thought, realizing how much I'd grown used to their presence during Keon's hospital stay. Melia had been staying in my apartment, located on the hospital grounds. She often mentioned taking walks around the sprawling campus while I was tied up with work. Though we didn't spend much time together, just knowing Melia was nearby brought me a surprising sense of comfort. But once they returned to the island, I didn't know when I'd see her again. Kai, you said you'd help me. What did you mean by that? On their last evening, Melia asked me this directly. If you still haven't given up on becoming a doctor, I'll come back to the U.S. for you. I'll support you with everything. Your studies, your life, and whatever it takes. You changed your life for me. I can't let you do that. You've achieved your dream, overcome your illness, and made such an incredible comeback. You've already helped me, Melia. I helped you, she asked, looking at me with curiosity. After I got sick, I thought I might never perform surgery again, or if I could, it would take years. But seeing you, even while burdened by your own frustrations, care so deeply for your grandfather, with such strength and kindness, gave me the motivation to push through. That's what helped me. Now, I want to be there to support you in chasing your dream. Kai, you've done more than enough for everyone else. You don't have to keep pretending to be strong anymore. Her expression softened, a mixture of relief and acceptance. I want your help. Please help me. I smiled warmly at her response. 2 months after Melia and Keon returned to the island, I received updates. Keon's recovery was going well, and he was determined to remain village chief until the new ferry route between the island and the big island of Hawaii was inaugurated. Melia and I stayed in constant contact. She had resolved to pursue her dream of becoming a doctor and had consulted Dr. Hastings at the clinic. He had enthusiastically supported her decision and promised to help however he could. I couldn't return to the island right away due to the many patients awaiting my surgeries, but I had begun preparing to leave my current hospital once my commitments were fulfilled. My plan was to transfer to a hospital on the Big Island to be closer to Melia. I was eagerly anticipating our reunion. When we met again, I planned to propose to her formally. For now, though, there were still patients depending on me. Doctors don't just save lives, they save hearts too. And sometimes they get saved in return, just like I was. With that thought, I prepared myself and pushed open the door to the operating room.